everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of ZankCast, where we interview members from the Beyblade community. For this episode, we have a creative talent in the Beyblade community. If you have heard about anything that has to do with 3D printing Beyblade, you may have seen their channel. For this ZankCast, we have a very special guest, which is CrazyAries. How are you?
Hello, very nice to see you. Thanks for your invitation. Yeah. Okay.
Those that might not know your YouTube channel or you, just give a little introduction to yourself.
Sure. I started playing Beyblade since 2016 and started creating Beyblade design very soon, actually. And I started making costume first base. I think it's since 2017, and I just recently I keep uploading video until now, and I think currently I upload one video. I upload video bi-weekly, and yeah, there you can show. I think in my channel introduction, I say it may not be a must-have channel, but I believe everything in my channel will be very unique. And hopefully everyone can get their. I know many people they just want the evolution of some Beyblades, but TOMY just don't do it. So on one hand, I satisfy myself, and on the other hand, I also satisfy all Beyblade players. I think that's basically what I did for the custom Beyblade designs. Yeah.
So, just the opening question. What got you into Beyblade?
Yeah, actually, talk about this. There's something that I don't really want to talk, but I think it will be unavoidable. Some people may have heard about the Infinite Naddle, which is basically the knockoff brand of Beyblade.
Yeah.
But actually, before I played Beyblade, that was one. That is the batting top I played. That was back in China. I play Infinite Naddle, but in that community, some people they mention the Beyblade toy line, and I just get some interested in actually at very first they show me something like how Meteor Drago they do spin seal, some maybe Flash Tutorial, the super attack the super attack combo, they just blow up basically everything in the stadium. So I just so impressed, and I rather after I get a chance to buy the Beyblade toys myself, I just started playing it, and I think that's at 2016. As I mentioned, since 2016 I started playing Beyblade, and it was exactly at the very very beginning of Beyblade Burst. So basically, I think Beyblade Burst could be I mean, it just goes through everything during my Beyblade playing experience.
That's actually very interesting, because a lot of people just we just remember NATO as just there's the Beyblade knockup. So it's kind of interesting to see that was kind of like your gateway just to getting there. So
yeah, I have to admit that that brand, that knockoff brand, it bring me to the world of Beyblade. In that case, I will appreciate, but well, I will no longer playing that.
Okay, so for what a lot of people know you by, which is a lot of the custom, 3D printing designs, what kind of just got you into wanting to do sort of just 3D modeling designs and just making a lot of these custom works that you do?
Well, that's a very tough question, actually.
Sorry.
The very beginning of my I'm making Beyblades. Actually, I started making design at Infinite Naddle as well. So, at very first, I played Infinite Naddle. I started drawing sketch for designs, and it took 3 years. And finally, I learned some 3D modeling techniques with my uncle who has whose company he's doing some electrical devices, and they have some 3D modeler, but that's nothing about Beyblade. They just teach me some very basic operations of the software, and I just try to like convert those sketches into the models. So that is a very, how to say it? I say time is a very, very critical thing for this. It just spends so many years on like, first it's just on drawing, and then like you just practice most 3D modeling. I just learn some very basic operations, and sometimes just try different combination of all these tools, all these methods, and see what can happen. Yeah, I mean, during the past few years, there's always a lot of people, they ask me if I can like do tutorial, like teach them how to make baby design. But to me, all the operations, all the methods, there's nothing different from just this. I think it's very common for all 3D modeling things. It's just like you have the idea of a certain design. You have your just very, it's just feeling. It's very subjective, just feeling. It just, you go into the like you have an idea about what a good baby is in your mind. Like you convert them into the model, but the operations, the tools the method you use are just same as everything else. So it's very difficult to me to really like teach someone how to make a baby design, how to like how to create a Beyblade. So
All right. So what I want to say, I thought it was really interesting just to hear how you're able to just pick up on those skills, and then after it you know, it is true to the extent that with creation, it's a lot of how you want to do it in expression. It's not as simple as just, okay, I'll throw it in Blender, 1, 2, that's the Beyblade. It's a lot of like work and a lot of thinking, and it goes to a lot of what artists do, that it's like a form of expression in the work that they do in the creation. So it's very nice just to hear you talk about it, which I thought it would be a little bit interesting to talk about, because you kind of like predicted this ahead of time for some things. There would be like an evolution you would do for a Beyblade, like during sparking, there'd be like Wyvern, and then after TT would actually later on do Wyvern. So I'm kind of curious in your perspective on like the creation that you did, and then after just seeing what TAKARA TOMY does.
well, to me, there's a very, very big issue. Actually, sometimes people just like compare my work to TAKARA TOMY's, and they were like saying, "Okay, you did better." Or sometimes some people even say TAKARA TOMY copied my idea, but it's not. I take TAKARA TOMY's idea in my design. They just follow the line, you know. Like Wyvern, it just, I mean, the free spinning defense is what it features, and I just use that gimmick on my design. And TAKARA still use that gimmick, and they actually add something more. They add the like ratchet, like the ratchet gimmick. So it's totally not they steal my idea, but it's I take theirs. That's one thing that I concern most. I don't really want people to like think I'm trying to defeat TAKARA TOMY. I'm not. So so in my recent video, I just said I sometimes I did a battle between my version and TAKARA TOMY's version. Currently, I have some super Hyperion, the Helios ones. I just say it's not very comprehensive. It's not a comparison. It's just to like for fun. It's just for fun. Just for fun. Yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's good to say how my version and the TAKARA version can perform differently, but that's not actually what I focus on when I do my design. I just try to like create the one in my idea. I mean, something it just came into my mind. I made it into the real product. What TAKARA TOMY did, what TAKARA TOMY will do, what they have done has nothing to do with me actually. So I just don't want to make people be confused. I'm not competing with TAKARA TOMY or something like that.
Yeah, just for fun creation. It is interesting because there are some times when we get to see from the work they do, like evolutions they would never do. Like they just forgot all about Zeus, for an example. You did Flare's Zeus, and you did in GT, I believe, also Zeus. So it's like, I think I think they mean it as a compliment, but I don't think they realize like when they're saying it that it might be like too far to the extent.
Yeah, this is I mean I really hope that the Tomy can do a new Zeus evolution. I
Oh,
really hope so, but I don't know why. I think when Knight, the Wing Knight in BU is like the only stamina type in BU, but I think that should be Zeus, not Knight.
yeah. Yeah, some slots, some slots they kind of just had to throw in there just because. Yeah, this is me getting into why I was kind of like 50-50 on BU because I got Excalibur, which I'm always happy with, but like there are some things I don't think I needed in Evo 4. Like I don't think I needed another Hyperion in the Helios. I feel like I
Yeah.
don't know because a lot of them are pretty popular, but I don't know. I don't know. I assume probably maybe it was something with Hasbro, maybe influencing on the choices, because like there's an animation for Quad Strike, so maybe that's why they pick certain ones. So then after Hasbro, yeah, so it was a tangent, but
Yeah, that
I want to ask about
that
this.
could be explanation.
Sorry. So I was gonna say, since you've done modeling with Beyblade Burst to create a lot of custom projects, what do you think was the most enjoyable aspects to come out of Burst, and at least like since you have like the most perspective in design? So because like you've done all this like 3D design, and you've got to experience a lot of the
Yeah.
systems, and you have more of a perspective on the gimmicks, all that stuff. You know how like how the layer systems work. You know, what do you think was like the good stuff that the burst system did well, and maybe the like the least liked aspects.
Well, that's a very good question. So for burst, I mean the whole burst system, I think the good point is definitely that the attack type have one more choice to win in the battle. But the bad thing is I would say this system, the structure is not stable enough, so that you cannot will control the base, like control the movement of it. And I mean it's taller than the metal fights. I'm not familiar with Plastigen, but I think probably it's like I don't know if that the Plastigen have the same issue, but I think because of the hit points are all plastic, it somehow limits the attack power of the bay. Like actually, some people that one of my friends they did a test, like they used the Flash Scenario to like battle uh, some modified illegal mod base and some like dynamite with F gear. They just find the F gear really it really absorbed too much impact, and even Flash cannot really hit it, like knock it out of the surgeon. So it somehow limits still. I mean, on one hand, the burst gimmick it add another choice for attack types, but also the plastic layer it limits the attack power of attackers. So that's the my overall idea to whole burst series, burst system. Um, but for some like for those like GT, Sparking, and DB, I have some more actually negative ideas. They divide the layer into three parts, and only I mean for GT is base, for Sparking it's ring, and for DB and Bill are blades. They are the main contact point, and where the gimmicks are usually based on. But because they separate the layer into three parts, the space to put all these gimmicks, I mean, it's quite limited. There's just not that much space to if you want to add in gimmicks on it. It's I mean just how to say it is for
No,
I mean for players okay is well you can see the Garen Dragon is so huge
yeah,
because they need that much space for that. I don't know why they just love that gimmick, but they just need that gimmick so that they have to make the base super big. So
No, I get what you mean. You're talking about, yeah, because they're not separated, they have to very much like work around with the space that they have to fit these gimmicks in. I feel like some of them, that's why you probably don't see on some of them gimmicks, or some of them they have to like work specifically on certain stuff. Like Xiphoid, because it's the BU system, instead of normally having the metal sword, they put the metal sword on
yeah,
the chip, so that way it can work. Because obviously, if you put like a tiny piece of metal on like the Xiphoid blade, it's not going to do much. Like 0.5 grams.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that actually, to be honest, that may not be the biggest issue. But I mean, they if they want to add some gimmick, they have to like think about like that weird sword on the core. And that orientation is just it's not meant to me. It just totally destroys the. I mean, the sword driver. They cannot line up with the attack points on the layer anymore.
Yeah,
They have
it's
to do something. They have changed it, and
it's one of like the reason why they picked Sword Dash, and I realize this is because that's the only driver they could pick where it doesn't scrape with Xanthus, but they could have made High Iron Dash or High Extreme Dash. We
yeah.
got two options out of Zyphoid. Two options they could have made that was new, and they picked like the driver that was already like terrible in Chozetsu, and it was not not even good there. So I feel like part of it too, which we were talking about the drivers. I feel like even in the design of the bays, I could tell they had nothing else left in the system, or then maybe they wanted to save some for Gen 4 because like, okay, sparking a lot of stuff is repeated. Okay, it's fan service, whatever, sure. Okay, now we're like in DB and now we're in like BU and like I can barely count new drivers. I don't count like variants where it's like bearing Mobius or bearing Drift. I mean like new and it's like you had Kick, Never, Venture, and you can tell it's like they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do because even in like Sparking we're already suffering when like Hollow Death Scyther had like high Excel dash. Like I just couldn't think of anything else there.
Well, yeah. Actually, during my design, I also feel the design for driver. I mean, for performance tip is really it's really hard. I mean, there are very few choice that can really be a good driver, but you cannot just reuse your design over and over again. You have to like make some changes. So like I mean, you may know that I'm working on the B or Harcom, and I I really actually I really have no, at first I really have no idea what I should do to the driver because I think all the good options has been used. So I relook all my old designs, and I just noticed that there was some drivers that I haven't really published yet, and it's basically just an eternal. I would say it's just like an eternal, but a wider plate,
Right.
a metal tip. I think probably that's the only solution that I can give to Orihakam. I
Right.
don't think it really fits Orihakam at all. I think that's best I can do.
Yeah, I think part of it just comes to I mean, that's why I really like about seeing your work because it's always interesting to see a lot of the driver concepts that I feel like very interesting, like you did for Amaterios. I saw you did for Baldur because you posted on it. So that's kind
Yeah.
of also part of a question I wanted to ask, which is like when you're creating a lot of, I'll say more specifically on the drivers, you know, like how does that process work out when you try to go from how do I want it to work and then after just like the testing process? Like I imagine it's probably like a lot of trial and error just to find out what works best for the 3D print.
Well, yeah, actually, test is very, and because 3D printing is not like testing program.
Yeah.
It really, it really costs something. You need to pay for it, and it needs some time. Actually, that's the other issue. Um, so actually, when I got this, sometimes just take the Amateur's drive as example. Actually, just for the tips material and shape, Actually, I think I did 305 version. That's 304 versions. At first, I used the TPU,
Right.
and I found it's just too hot, too tough. Then I tried I think it's called elastic resin.
Yeah.
Then it's too soft. Then I tried it's called flexible resin. Yeah, and I think the toughness is okay, but then I feel the shape is not it.
Right.
Actually, then I just realized probably just a circle tip is better than that spiral shaped tip. So I just make it less spiral, but more like just circle. So actually, it's a very slight change. Probably not every people noticed, but it's if you look at my final product of the as a driver and um, the rendering I show in the modern videos, they're not exactly the same. All this modification, all the correction are just you have to do it step by step, and sometimes you change first. You need to change the material. Then you realize the shape is not good enough. Sometimes the difference is so slight that people may not even notice it, but you know it really matters. And another example is the satellite driver for Zeus and the Bill Phantom. Actually, the one that I published in the final version. No, it's a version that I use for the actual product. It's slightly different than the rendering images I shown before.
Right.
It's just very slight difference, just a tip. Where the metal ball tip is coated. I just cut a very thin layer. I think it's just a quarter millimeter. I just cut it quarter millimeter off, and that makes something really different. You have just you have to make the actual product and test it, and just sometimes you actually when I do the correction, I don't know if that really helps or not, but I have to try it, and finally it proves I'm correct. It's somehow painful, but when it's done, it feels good.
Because it's a lot of hard work to nail it. I do imagine for a lot of this stuff, it's I know what it's like to work on something for a while until like you just get it right just to work specifically. Because like obviously because you're creating it, so you know like how you want it exactly. So
Yeah.
something I was a little bit curious on was for inspiration for the work that you do. You know, like what inspires you to just to keep on, you know, doing the work that you do.
Well, first, I think the support from my audience is definitely a very important reason for me. Although I always say it's, making baby designs are kind of entertainment for me. But I think the response from the audience is also very important. That really make me feel okay. My interest in baby design, can actually help someone in the whole community. It's not just a self entertainment. I have to say it's kind of self entertainment for me because I made the design and I don't sell them. It doesn't give me any actual profit. But when I see people they got like good response. They like my design, and I can still remember someone in the comment they say my work changed their life. I don't know what aspect, but that is very good comment. That is really good comment to me. That just make okay. I know I have to make all these designs. I have to like continue working in this way. Yeah, that's really important. So
It's very
yeah,
inspirational, and I do think you have a lot of support because people just love to see the work that you do, and also love to see because TT is not going to do it. So to see a passionate fan work on it, it's very exciting to see because they do kind of feel like official release in the sense like of the quality and the design and like the cool idea with like the gimmicks and that type of work. But I wanted to say now, in terms of just the layer systems, you know, which layer system did you like the most in terms of just it's like, did you like single layers, dual, the chose Z, GT, sparking, DB? I'm just a little curious because it's
Well, yeah. If I may, I would like to conclude the first four generations from single layer, dual layer, Gaussian to choices. I would count them as one. I would say they are technically the same. Although they have the Gaussian and choices, they have different gimmicks, but when I do design, I can just use the same template file. And adding the gimmick or not, decide if it's dual layer or Gaussian layer. But if you just focus on the performance, the gimmicks not the biggest problem. So I think this four, to me, it's I would say it's more design friendly. Because as I said, you will have you will have enough space to add all different gimmicks, and you don't need to make the base so bulky like those sparking or DB base. But as a player, actually, I prefer sparking and DB. I think that structure really makes the base more stable. You can better control especially for attack types, and even for summon type, it can also be a bit more stable. It doesn't just move all around the stadium, and sometimes even you use at that time I think it was just X10 Plus. Even if you use X10 Plus, it can just bring out self KO is still quite common when back in I think back in Chosets and GT I think. So I think sparking and DB really helps a lot for this issue.
okay.
Yeah. So for designer, I like all the four system before GT, but as a player, I prefer sparking and DB.
Okay, that is okay, that's fair enough. So, sorry. So for the next thing, I'm just wondering on, for the fourth generation, because it's coming up. I got to keep asking this question until we get to March, but time. Okay, so since there's going to be fourth generation eventually, they're going to do something about it. I was going to ask about, what do you think is the best thing that they could implement into the design for the fourth generation, or if there's maybe something you don't want to see, what would it be?
Well, I think one of the things that I don't really want to say is that they bring. I think for Burst, they bring the gimmicks too early. They just, the first for anime, the first season is for the dual layer, and then it direct go to the Goddard, and all different gimmicks they just pop up one by one. And actually, I think since Sparking, they actually have no new idea for what gimmick can give to babies. So they just reuse those old gimmicks. Sometimes they just add metal or add rubber on a layer. So I think probably that's because they just bring the gimmicks into the Burst series too early. So I hope they can add the gimmicks probably in the third or fourth season of the new generation. And another thing that I think is probably is the stability of the bay. As I mentioned, because the structure is not very stable, for burst, it's quite hard to really control the movement of attack types. At least at the very beginning, it's quite hard. And sometimes even if you use some standard tips or defense tips, it can still run very fast and just self KO. So I think that's the issue that the new generation. I hope the new generation will not have anymore. But for something good is that the meta balance. Here you can still see even now we have dynamite with F gear. We have the wing. The attackers still have their positions. The ultimate, the guilty, or even divine with A gear. I think they're very powerful attackers. So it can still control the balance of the whole meta. That's something I think for that Baby have done very well since because I'm not familiar with Pelagian, but since Metal Fight, they have done very well for controlling the balancing in the whole meta. So that's what I want to say. And for another thing is, I would say it's definitely the metal contact point. Actually, I've been waiting for that since the very beginning of Burst. Then I saw the Chodits. Well,
Yeah.
but still, the main contact points are just plastic. But I think metal is somehow important because it can like increase. I mean, if the contact point is metal, the shape don't need to be very aggressive, but it can still have very good attack power.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the shape of metal fighter base are actually safer than burst. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
sometimes the burst base they have quite sharp edges, but for metal fighter base they can just make it quite round. I mean, they just run everywhere, but still the impact are quite good. So that's why I really like the metal contact points. Another thing I want the first generation to keep is probably the burst system. It's a new way for the base to win. It does take some bad things, as I mentioned, stability, but I still think giving the base one more option to win is very interesting. I mean, at least for the visually, it really looks. I mean, for someone who don't know Beyblade, when they saw a base just burst during battles, they will get like first they may get shocked. Okay, today's toy is something like that. It's something quite they didn't expect it. They didn't expect, and they will get interested. They may start playing babies and they may join the community. Yeah. So I hope they can still have something similar to burst as a third option of winning. I think that's all my expectation for the fourth generation.
Yeah, I would definitely say I feel like the bursting is a step in the right direction because it makes the game more interesting. I think burst issues that they didn't know how to apply bursting right. I feel like there are a lot of layers that are actually hurt by bursting because basically if none of them bursted, right, a lot of the designs work a little bit better because it's not working against the teeth. Like Crash Ragnarok is like infamous for like bursting. Okay, with
Yeah.
Dash maybe slightly different, but
Yeah.
I feel like if they could maybe do a better job of executing it, maybe how they burst, I feel like that's a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
also am inclined to agree on the metal contact points, not because I grew up with Metal Fight, but I do like the idea of like the compact base and just the metal design. And I feel I like the balance a little bit more in Metal Fight than Burst. But I feel like I'm just saying that because Burst went on longer, so the balance obviously is going to be like. I think the issue is with how they do it is that there's always going to be like a power creep because eventually they got to make it heavier than the last one. And then after
Yeah.
they got to like add more stuff to it so people want to buy it. And like in Metal Fight, you saw that like they did the Maximum series, which
Yeah.
for context obviously like killed a lot of stuff because there's a lot of stuff like EWD. There's 230 that they released, Hell BD, Twisted, Spiral and Middle Flat. And then after the 40 system came, so it's like, yeah, I can imagine. I think also something I wanted to add on, which was something I noticed Burst did really well and Metal Fight did not, which was reprints. Metal Fight, if you look at like Zero G, they didn't do that many reprints. Like
Yeah.
nothing of the 40 system, which is really weird because they did a lot of the Zero G stuff. And granted, they did do some good reprints, but those were like in the Zero G Synchrome sets. But I think the random boosters did it probably have some good part selection. But like if you look at Burst, like
Yeah.
even though there was like the God layer, like there'd be like a single layer reprint or something, or even later on there'd be older layer reprints, or even there'd be reprints, and this was a really smart idea they did, based on the lottery, just slightly different. So I think reprints are a good idea for two reasons. One,
Yeah.
because it's not hoarding it to like specific sets. and it gives players more opportunities to get that shot, to get those specific parts. And granted, burst is not perfect either. Like, if you look at double chassis, yes, like 3A, 2S, 2A, never happened. Never, they didn't do it. Why?
Yeah.
Too much in the factory to actually do. That's why, like, we've gotten so many 1S, so many 1D, and so many 4A. And even like I think the last B random booster, which for the last one was okay. I feel like sometimes they'd also maybe just, I don't know, limitations on what they can do, because I cannot count how many times we have gotten Excel Dash in like every layer series since they've introduced it. Like, it's like their golden child. It's either it's Excel Dash or Fusion Dash. So I would say that if they're gonna design something, reprint it, but like make it make sense, because like it's always tough. It's always tough. The other thing I actually wanted to say too is the stadium. I feel like the stadium's so important, and I feel like they've done it twice now, or they already have a good stadium design. MFB BB10 burst like the standard.
Yeah.
And then some guy in like the design team's like, what, man, what if it just make it crazy? Because then that's how you got the 0G stadium, which admittedly is a fun stadium to play in, but in terms of competitive, it's very different, and I don't like it. And for burst, granted, I am a fanboy of the DP stadium, but even I can admit that how attack types work in there was not the best idea. I feel they kind of just, I don't know what happened there, but you know, what is your perspective too on like the idea of burst stadiums too, or not burst stadium, I mean just stadiums in general for, I guess, maybe the 4th generation, or like what would you think too about it?
Well, actually, currently what I'm worried most is that they will just use something similar to DB Stadium. I don't know actually why they got reason how they come the idea of that design. I mean that thing around the center is it really kills the attackers. I think it could be one of the biggest mistakes they made during the burst. It's really something. I just hope they will not reuse the DB Sturgeon in the 4th generation. Probably the Dash Sturgeon is started better, but I still hope they can start with. Probably I think they can make it deeper, but still the standard Sturgeon, or the modified Sturgeon. Probably they can make it deeper and slightly larger, but I hope the overall designs are still the same.
Right.
I think that's that's all this. That's all my expectation for Sturgeon. Because I feel the standard Sturgeon for burst and the modified are they're already pretty good. So I don't have much. I don't have more advice for it.
All right. So just to end off, I want to ask if you have any projects that you want to plug or anything you want to talk about at the end. The floor is yours.
Yeah, actually, we all know that the burst has already. I think it's already ended. We can say that, and I'm thinking about the new system, and what I want to do is like to combine I would say the single layer and the DB layer. I mean, it could be quite. I mean, I would not like separate the layer into 3 parts, but I should make it a whole. But I want to like add something below the layer, a bit above the disk, so it can like something similar to the DB layer. I mean, the height could be similar to DB layer, but the whole layer structure is still like similar to the single or dual layer. Yeah. And with that, I think I can implement all different gimmicks on it without making it a bit too large. And we can still have. I think for the part between the layer and this, I can make it metal, so that we can have some metal contact points like metal fighter base or the HMS base. And yeah, but I'm still like thinking about if I actually at the very beginning I want to add something similar to 0G. I want to like have two parts of the contact point, and they can flip, and they can exchange, they combine with other parts. But I think I don't want to make it like double metal. I don't want to make it like just you can win just because you're heavier. I don't want to make something like that. So I just want to like make one plastic layer, a metal piece below, and then you can just add this and driver on it. I think. Yeah, I haven't make a. This is still just in my mind. I'm still like thinking about how to like improve it, and for example, if I should like separate and like chip part from the layer, or I just use make the layer a whole part. But yeah, I think if it, I hope the final product will be interesting. I mean, either for competitiveness or the look.
So if you want to find out more about CrazyAries, he has his YouTube channel where he publishes his creation works. He also has Twitter and other social medias where he does share his 3D print posts, so you can find him there. I'll make sure to leave links in the description below for all of that. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. Greatly appreciated, especially through our technical difficulties. And make sure to subscribe to CrazyAries, show him some love. We'll always make sure to showcase and shout out, and we greatly appreciate a lot of the work that you've done for the community and your creativity.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation. Very nice to talk to you.
Alrighty, so that's going to be it for now. Thank you all for watching. Have an awesome and amazing day, and bye.